you doing? My name is Vince Faney. I am the producer, the director, and the host of the show, Insanity Unplugged. I'd like to present the book, Purgatory, Poverty and Injustice for All. That's a weird title, huh? Poverty and Justice for All? That sounds almost like a goal. But the goal, it's more of a reality of where humanity is heading. Now, Steven Pinker and some other people are quick to point out that nowhere in any time in history have we enjoyed, as humanity overall, enjoyed more wealth, more comfort, more safety. The standard of living has gone up considerably for people all around the globe. And he cites many reasons as to why. And that's true. That is true. However, in addition to the fact that there are still a couple billion people are still living well below the poverty line, suffering all sorts of heinous obstacles, starvation, malnutrition, violence, insecurities of all sorts. The fact that we're living in better times now doesn't mean we're going to continue to move forward. It doesn't mean that we'll stay at the standard of living we're at. My fear, and there's many legitimate reasons why I fear this, is that we're going to be moving backwards, maybe to a level of deprivation and poverty and suffering that humanity has never seen on such a wide scale. It could easily happen. Just like in my life, where I was on top of the world, where just one little misstep, one little mishap, and boom. Even though I'm a type of guy who's the epitome of perseverance, I'm trying to move forward. Despite my best efforts, I found myself struggling and homeless and fighting a government entity. So, that said, we're all pretty much in a bad situation right now. Government is basically making rules and mandates that won't allow lower level people, lower level investors who own businesses or own housing. The government's making decisions that would really is essentially crippling many of these businesses, essentially causing an extreme devaluation of our currency, which all other currencies around the world are linked to. And there's other countries that are doing this as well. Of course, some of my conspiracy friends talk about Agenda 21, I believe it's called, from the UN. They say that the UN is trying to, over time, use various nefarious and sneaky ways to depopulate, to sterilize the world, and to gain control and dominance, economic dominance over its people, military dominance, social dominance. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole it all really goes. There's regardless if that's the intention. There's people saying it's a new world order and that's its intention. I don't know that, but I do know things are going and happening, whether intended or not, that is actually creating a lot of danger, a lot of blowback. So it's not inconceivable that this earth can become a type of purgatory with poverty and injustice for practically all. So my whole intention is to try to convince people that we're all intertwined and interconnected, that no matter how easy it seems to you that you have a great life, the fact is many of you with lots of money are living in gated communities with intense security. And in a way, they're imprisoned in their own Shangri-Las. They have to be careful. They can't move about as freely in the world in some ways as I can. Although many of them say, I move about the way I want, where I want, when I want. But they have to acknowledge that they have to have, a security team, bodyguards, and so forth. And it has to be done at the expense of spending a great deal of money. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, Extreme Friendship. Because people at our level, or a lower level than me, financially, need to learn how to take control of their lives, their finance, their health, their relationships. And once they can master that, and they can convince the people in their family and their circle of friends to master that. They could be resources for each other. Now is the time more than ever to learn extreme friendship. And I got to say that, just in passing, a thought that that occurs to me on occasion is that we talk about the thousands of hours of mastery, and a lot of people talk about the things that I believe that I could achieve, which many of the things I wanted to achieve I did, often in half the time I thought it would take, or it would take most people who started off with the same meager beginnings as I have. Other times, though, quite frankly, I achieved things that I set out to do, but it took 3 times longer than what I had anticipated. But overall, I've achieved most of the things that I set forth in motion within the time frame or less. And that's because of the hard work, the planning, looking at details from every angle. Like, for instance, I was just shy of becoming a millionaire. I was investing in properties. And if I had not run afoul with the Postal Service, and at the time that I started running afoul with the Postal Service, if I had never invested in any more property, at the time, right before the 2008 bubble, or even after, I could have sold all my properties, and after taxes pocketed $2 million after taxes. And I could have had other income from other means, from other investments. And that took a lot of effort. And yet, I know if I was to go back in time, I could achieve that in 1/4 the time, knowing what I know now. There's quite a few things, like writing code, putting together a website. I could have achieved. As tough as that was, as brutal as that was, or do all those hours of writing code, I know about the shortcuts that people who have more technical knowledge could have made that website in less time, made it better. When it came to weight training, if I could go back in time, I got to say, out of all my endeavors, the hardest thing to master was reaching the level of world-class strength that I had reached, that I had achieved. Because it's not just simply an intellectual pursuit. Like becoming rich doesn't take you putting effort in every aspect of your physicality. It's more of like, what do I need to sacrifice? Where do I need to sacrifice? Where do I need to save money? Where do I need to spend money? How do I spend it wisely? Being a little patient, making the right moves. Okay? That was easy. That was a walk in the park compared to actually achieving a world-class level of strength. Because when you're doing anything physical at that level, it's not just physical. You're putting everything, blood, sweat, and tears. But, to achieve anything, like in weight training, strength training, you have every thought, every utterance, every action has to be put into what you're pursuing. And athletic endeavors at that level, it takes up your mind, your body, your diet, everything. Most difficult thing I've ever done that I've accomplished. So I basically get a great deal of satisfaction that, one, I was willing to do all that, and two, that it proved to be successful, that I came across certain insights, discovered protocols, or the protocols that I learned from others, I was able to modify and to improve upon. But the most perplexing, most daunting thing is getting people to do what's in their own best interest, to be rational, to be loving, to understand the importance and the joy of sacrificing for your heart's desire, to understand that the journey is the reward and not the destination. The destination is just a byproduct. And once you reach that destination, that's kind of a little bit like icing on the cake. So the hardest thing is getting people to understand the importance of being an extreme friend, extreme father, extreme lover. And ironically, it should be the easiest thing to achieve, even though it does take discipline. It takes a certain amount of artfulness, certain science is involved, understanding people's personalities and neurology and so forth, and your own. And yet, despite all that, that's the approach that should be taken to everything. But the one goal that I want to see change, to see people work together, should be the easiest to accomplish. And yet, not only should it be the easiest to accomplish, it would yield unimaginable, fantastic results. So if people were to work together, like for instance, if I was able to keep myself on track and not be distracted by people who are squandering their time and my time, and we all pursued what I was pursuing, many of the things that would alleviate their loneliness, their boredom, their angst, their sense of nihilism, their sense of hopelessness, their unhappiness with their financial state, their bodies, their health. If we all work together and use each other as force multipliers, every one of the people I worked with would be wealthy, they would have kick-ass bodies, they would kick-ass performance, they'd be healthy, not just healthy, but they would have great relationships. So the world that I was looking forward to was more like what I call could have been a wonderful life. Could have been a wonderful life. Like in that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, with Jimmy Stewart, where the angel shows him. Here's what a dismal place this town would be. I think it got renamed into Pottersville because the evil bankster would have more influence. He was only interested in wealth, and he didn't care how he attained this wealth. But George Bailey made that town better. And so even though he didn't have a perfect life, he had a wonderful life, because the angel showed the difference of where his life was, because he failed to commit suicide, and he showed that if he had committed suicide or never been born, where that town would have ended up. And so I submitted to my friends, and I submit to you, that if we had done everything, just follow the recipe. It's not rocket science. And we use each other as force multipliers, and all of us worked to become as influential in the community in a good way, for positive results, that this current reality would be closer to a utopia. Eugene wouldn't have hardly any homeless people. I'm confident in that, because we could have all been working on that 20, 30 years ago when it first started happening. And it's a weird vision that I saw what could be, and I saw what was likely to happen. And I saw where things were going with the homeless, and I saw how the city bureaucracy and so forth, and not just the city, you can't pin it all on just legislators, because we allow legislators to perform badly. And they did, even though many of them had the best of intentions. And so this homeless situation, the city is now faced with, they have to do it. It's not like, hey, we're doing this now because we're noble and we're trying to get ahead of this, this terrible curve. They're forced into a corner after squandering years of money and time into wrong areas of focusing on the wrong things. So we do see poverty in certain segments of the population that is increasing. And poverty has no prejudice. It doesn't care if you're black, if you're transgender, if you're heterosexual, if you're cis or this or that. It doesn't care if you're what race you are, what culture you embrace. Poverty is real, and it can happen to anybody, almost regardless of how high up you are, unless you're the top 0.0001%. And those are people with resources. And many of those people are there because they or their ancestors understood certain tenets of friendship and conspired and collaborated with other people who are like-minded. And since there's so few people who do that as assertively, as brilliantly as they do, they are on the top of the food chain, and likely they or their offspring are likely to be at the top of the food chain until the planet is destroyed. Because now if we had an apocalypse, if all of a sudden we went back down to the Stone Age, like in the TV show series Revolution, the people at the very, very top right now have security forces that would be armies. These people could eventually own baronies. They have those type of resources. They have stockpiles of gold and silver and supplies. They have intelligence. They have access to their own quasi-military units. They have connections. These are people on the top already. And so if there was if all our currency became null and void, there'd still be some type of currency of one sort or the other. And those of us at the bottom, or even the middle, or even, right now, many people with jobs that put them in the upper class, all gone. And that's why we have to work together. So check out the book, Extreme Friendship, and see what you think. All right, thank you.